Hello everybody out there and welcome to this, another edition of a late night screen review. This time we're talking about Longlegs. And I'm only 5'8".
Don't move.
Is it scary being an FBI agent?
A letter was left with the bodies. We have 10 letters like it over the past 30 years. And all in the sign of one word: Longlegs.
So Longlegs, directed by Oz Perkins and released in all major theatres in the UK by the 12th of July. So it's out now! So what's the story? So newly recruited Lee Harker, is a young and upcoming FBI agent. Her first case is against a serious big time serial killer. What twists and turns ensue? Does she have a strangely personal connection to the killer? Well, the answer, yeah, that's the story. Ah! So what did I think of the movie? Oh, it's rubber. So here's the things, everyone. I only knew about this movie by the trailer, which is usual. But I did one thing that I don't usually do when watching these movies, and I'm just about to do a review. I actually looked on Twitter and Instagram just to see what some other people had said. Now, I didn't do a ton of research, but the vast majority of kind of personal kind of accounts of the film and experiences was that it was an okay movie, and essentially there were some good bits and some bad bits, but it wasn't all that, and there's obviously a lot of hype behind this film that maybe isn't justified. So what do I think of the film? Pretty much the exact same thing. And I'm sorry, because I hate these kind of reviews, I really do, but it is a kind of meh film. Now, Oz Perkins apparently is a really interesting director, because apparently they'd just done In a Violent Nature, and again, I've not been researching a lot of these films. I kind of don't like to, because I just want to go to the cinema, experience the film, and then share it with you guys. FYI, we are back in the studio for this one. I'm sorry, I had a ton of work this week. It was crazy hectic. I just got back from a 3-day trip with work and then went straight in to see the film. So I went in and I was absolutely exhausted. And to be honest, I wasn't in the right frame of mind to watch a movie. I was so tired. So that might be why I didn't enjoy the film as much as I was kind of hoping I would. So here's the thing, I was hoping for a really nitty-gritty FBI police procedural kind of film with a serial killer, with maybe some flavourings of the supernatural. Now, in a kind of broad sense, that's exactly what this film is. To me, this film went a couple of paces too far, especially towards the end of the movie, that kind of took me away from the film. So I guess it might have just been me, but here are a couple of things that I felt that just didn't jive with me in terms of the movie and the way it was kind of set out. Lee Harker, who's this brand new FBI agent, she's young, she's obviously a girl, it's set in like the early 90s, I think. The film starts off and it starts to feel like, Silence of the Lambs. It's very gritty, very set in the real world. Until then, Lee Harker has some sort of psychic premonition that the first time she's out on a call that she says, oh, the killer's in this house over here. Her partner doesn't believe her, and the partner ends up getting killed straight away, and that's how the film opens. So I'm like, oh, this is like a Dario Argento movie. It's a psychic detective versus a serial killer. That'll be cool. And then it's kind of dropped, and then she starts working with like the kind of, I don't know all the terms for the FBI, so I apologize. She starts working with like, I guess the sergeant or whatever, like a lead FBI agent, a seasoned FBI agent, and he kind of acknowledges, oh, you've got this kind of premonition stuff. That's weird. We'll just say that you're, naturally attuned to certain things, to hunches, and then that's kind of left to the wayside. And I was like, huh. And the actress herself, it's a double-edged sword, but the performance of Lee Harker by actress Micah Monroe, she does a really interesting choice. She's almost like, I don't know, emotionally awkward, socially awkward. There might be some sort of mental health issues that she's having or something, but she's very blank and she struggles to communicate with people, which for me, being an FBI agent, maybe that might be quite important. And there's some sequences in the movie where she kind of looks fairly like, I don't know, like she's emotionally void, or that she's struggling, emotionally with things that are happening around her. And nobody says anything about it and nobody brings it up. So it's just another thing where you go, huh. At one point, especially later on in the movie, she obviously is starting to get involved in this really serious serial killer case. And the more the story goes on, slight spoilers here, folks, but the more the story goes on, we find out that the detective herself is actually has a connection with this serial killer. Not only that, that the serial killer knows her name and knows who she is and directs her, like, you know, in letters and writings and things like that, directly sends messages straight to her. And nobody seems to think this is weird, and nobody seems to think this is concerning for the case. They just let her do it. And I was just like, huh, that's weird. At one point, the main lead FBI guy that she ends up being partners with, he even calls her out on it towards the end of the movie. He's like, you know, it's weird that since you started on this case, everything started to turn on, the case has started to really pick up traction. It's weird that the serial killer seems to know who you are and has experiences with you, and that on one of your birthdays when you were 9 years old, he came to your house, and yet still nobody steps in, still nobody thinks to maybe not let her go on the case any longer. I just couldn't get over it. It blew my mind. And as I say, the actress makes a really interesting choice with the main character. It just kind of throws you off, and I'm sure it's the intention of the filmmaker. But for me, and again, as I say, I was really tired, it was a late screening, I just couldn't vibe with it. I just couldn't get with it. I was just like, I don't know about this. I don't really get it. On top of that, you've got Nicolas Cage's performance, which is interesting. Again, that's what I'll always say about this movie. It's interesting. There's definitely decisions being made here with the performances of the main character and the serial killer. The actors Michael Monroe and Nicolas Cage are making really interesting choices. You know, you can't take your eyes off of them. But when you actually think about it in the context of the world that they're set in, it doesn't really make any sense, and it falls apart for me. Maybe I was thinking about it too much, I'm not sure. But yeah, at one point, like, Nicolas Cage is doing this really crazy performance. He's like, you know, a crazy serial killer times 10. Every serial killer you've ever known mushed into one single man. And he's also wearing some sort of facial prosthetics that I couldn't work out in the movie if they were actually facial prosthetics within the story or if they were meant to be just facial prosthetics, because he looks so silly. And he just walks around like a store and saying crazy things. And I was like, even if he wasn't killing people, this man would have been arrested and put in a psychiatric ward long, long ago. And again, where some people probably love that performance and just ride it and think it's fantastic, I was just taken out of the film. I think it's because the universe of the film takes itself so seriously, but then there's these huge kind of plot points that just really kind of don't make that much sense and really bothered me. The film, however, is still interesting. It's shot beautifully. The actors are all doing a great job. There's some interesting, engaging performances, even if they're just a bit weird. So for me, it's a mixed bag. I can't say it's a high recommend, because for me, I left the film, I thought it was an okay movie, but I was left in certain points just really frustrated. And I was like that with Oz Perkins's last film, In a Violent Nature. I just left wanting more and wanting better. And to me, the characters just weren't doing things that I wanted them to do, and were just doing strange things that didn't make much sense in the plot of the story. Because the story for me is the big point of this movie. I think everything else is absolutely fantastic, except the actual story of the film. It doesn't really make much sense. And ultimately, here's some minor spoilers, guys. It ultimately comes down to basically Satan worship and cult-like behaviour. And for me, especially in the modern horror movies of late, over the last couple of years, I'm kind of getting bored with it. You know, we've had so many, Omen and Immaculate and various other ones that I'm just kind of like, can we do something other than the devil now, please? So for me, it's a mild recommend. For me, it could have been so much better, but for what it gives you, it's mildly entertaining. It's not a boring film by any stretch of the imagination. It's very stylistic. There's great score. There's a great score and music and sound effects and things like that. It's all. It all works towards what the filmmaker's trying to do. It's just that I don't really like it ultimately as a whole package. So it's a mild recommend for me, guys. I wasn't massively enthused by this one, unfortunately. But until next week, guys, stay safe, stay scared, and we will see you soon. Bye.